The stars were dying one by one, and Commander Vextar was the one killing them. He stood on the bridge of his massive warship, the Dominator, and watched another world burn. The blue and green planet below had been home to millions of people just hours ago. Now it was nothing but fire and smoke. Vextar had 4 arms, each one stronger than any human limb. His skin was dark purple, and his eyes glowed red in the dim light of the bridge. He belonged to a race called the Zephyrians, and they were very good at one thing: war. They had been fighting and winning for thousands of years. It was what they were born to do. "Sir, the planet has surrendered," said Communications Officer Thane. He was younger than Vextar, but just as deadly. "All their cities are destroyed. Their military is gone." Vextar nodded. This was the 300th world they had conquered in just 10 years. The Zephyrian Empire was growing bigger every day, and no one could stop them. They had the best ships, the best weapons, and the best soldiers in the galaxy. "Good," Vextar said. "Send the message to all other worlds in this system. They have 1 day to surrender, or they will share the same fate." The bridge crew worked quietly around him. They had done this so many times before that it had become routine. Conquest was just another day's work for the Zephyrian Empire. They moved from world to world like a storm, leaving nothing but destruction. Behind them, Vextar thought about all the races they had defeated. The Altarians had been first. They lived in beautiful crystal cities that reached up to the clouds. The Zephyrians had turned those cities into dust in just 3 days. The Altarians were peaceful people who had never fought a war. They didn't know how to defend themselves. Then came the Vegan Confederacy. They were traders who had built network of commercial worlds across their sector. They had money and technology, but they didn't have warriors. The Zephyrians took their industrial worlds and used them to build even more warships. The vegans lasted only 6 months before they gave up. The Centauri Republic had been different. They were proud warriors who had never lost a battle. Their soldiers were trained from childhood to fight and die for their people. But even they couldn't stand against the Zephyrian war machine. The Republic fell after 2 years of brutal fighting. Their warrior culture meant nothing when faced with superior technology and numbers. "Sir," Thane said again, "we're receiving reports from the outer fleets. The human colonies are falling one by one. Most are surrendering without a fight." Vextar's mandibles clicked together in what passed for a smile among his people. Humans were the newest species they had encountered. These creatures had only been traveling between stars for 50 years. They were weak, soft, and had no real military to speak of. Most human worlds had given up as soon as they saw what happened to Earth's outer colonies. "How many human worlds are left?" Vextar asked. 17, sir, but they're all small colonies with no defenses. We should have them all conquered within the month." Vextar turned back to look at the burning planet below. Each conquered world made the Empire stronger. They took the best technology, the smartest people, and the most useful resources. Everything else was destroyed or abandoned. It was efficient, and it worked. The Zephyrians had evolved on a world where only the strongest survived. They had fought their way to the top of their planet's food chain through millions of years of constant warfare. When they finally reached the stars, they brought that same brutal efficiency with them. Every species they met was either conquered or destroyed. "Sir," another officer called out, "we're getting strange reports from the human front." Vextar turned. "What kind of reports?" "There's been some kind of attack on our supply lines. 3 cargo ships were destroyed near the Kepler system. The escorts reported seeing weapon fire, but they couldn't find the source." Vextar frowned. "Pirates?" "Unknown, sir. The attack seemed too coordinated for random pirates. And the weapon signatures don't match any known technology." Probably just some desperate humans making a last stand, Vextar said. It doesn't matter. Send more escorts with the supply ships. A few desperate attacks won't change anything. But even as he said it, Vextar felt a small worry in the back of his mind. In all their conquests, no enemy had ever managed to seriously disrupt their supply lines. The Zephyrian military was too well organized, too powerful. Their logistics were perfect. The bridge door opened, and Admiral Zarthok entered. He was even bigger than Vextar, with scars covering his arms from countless battles. He had personally conquered 47 worlds, and was considered one of the Empire's greatest military minds. Commander, Zarthok said, we need to talk. I've been reviewing the reports from the human front, and something doesn't add up. Vextar gestured to his private office. They walked in silence, and Zarthok closed the door behind them. What's the problem, Admiral? The humans, Zarthok said. They're not behaving like the other species we've conquered. Most of them are surrendering. Yes, but there's something else. Our intelligence reports show they're evacuating their people to unknown locations. And these attacks on our supply lines are getting more frequent. Vextar sat down in his chair. You think they're planning something? I think they're buying time. The question is, for what? Outside the office, the bridge continued its quiet work. The Zephyrian Empire rolled on, conquering world after world. But somewhere in the darkness between the stars, something was watching them. Something that would soon change everything. Captain Jake Morrison had not slept properly in 3 weeks. His eyes were red and tired, but his mind was sharp. He stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, watching the stars move slowly past the main screen. His ship was hiding in the empty space between 2 star systems, invisible to enemy sensors. The Liberty was not like other human ships. She was built as a test ship for new technology that most people thought was impossible. While other human vessels were big and slow, the Liberty was fast and smart. She could disappear from enemy sensors, change her appearance, and strike without warning. Captain, said Lieutenant Commander Lisa Barrett from her station, I'm reading another enemy convoy heading for the Vega system. 12 cargo ships carrying supplies, with 4 warships protecting them. Morrison nodded. For the past 3 months, the Liberty had been hunting enemy supply ships. Every torpedo they fired, every enemy ship they destroyed, helped slow down the Zephyrian advance. It wasn't much, but it was something. How far out are they? Morrison asked. 6 hours at current speed. They're taking the safe route through the asteroid field. Morrison smiled. The Zephyrians always took the safe route. They were so used to winning that they had become predictable. The Liberty had been using that predictability against them. Set course to intercept. We'll hit them as they exit the asteroid field. The bridge crew moved quickly to follow his orders. These men and women had volunteered for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. Earth's government had told them they probably wouldn't survive more than a few weeks. That had been 3 months ago. Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez looked up from his console. His face was worried. Captain, we're running low on quantum torpedoes. After this attack, we'll only have 6 left. Morrison had been expecting this news. The Liberty carried advanced weapons that could punch through enemy shields, but they were limited. Earth's factories were gone, destroyed in the first wave of attacks. There was no way to get more ammunition. We'll make each shot count, Morrison said. How are the engines holding up? The stealth drive is working, but it's using a lot of power. We can't keep this up much longer without major repairs. Dr. Helen Wright approached with a datapad in her hands. She was the ship's chief science officer, and she had been studying enemy communications for weeks. Captain, I've been reading the messages we intercepted from enemy ships. Their commanders are getting angry. They're starting to pull ships from conquered worlds to look for us. This was good news. Every enemy ship hunting the Liberty was a ship that wasn't conquering new worlds or guarding supply lines. The ghost ship, as the enemy had started calling them, was becoming more than just a nuisance. "How many ships are they using to hunt us?" Morrison asked. "At least 50, maybe more. They're spreading them out across 3 sectors, trying to trap us." Morrison walked to the tactical display. It showed the positions of known enemy ships, marked in red. The Liberty was a small blue dot, surrounded by enemies. But the ship had advantages that the enemy didn't understand. The Liberty's stealth system was based on technology that humanity had developed in secret. It didn't just hide the ship from sensors. It made the ship look like empty space. Even when the enemy was looking right at them, they couldn't see the Liberty. The ship's weapons were also special. Instead of using brute force like other human ships, the Liberty's torpedoes adapted to whatever they hit. Enemy shields that had never been broken before collapsed under weapons that learned how to defeat them. "Captain," Barrett said, "we're approaching the intercept point. The enemy convoy should be here in 20 minutes. Morrison sat down in his command chair. "All hands, prepare for battle. Remember, we hit fast and disappear. Don't give them time to react." The Liberty moved through space like a predator stalking prey. Her engines made no sound. Her hull reflected no light. She was a ghost ship, invisible and deadly. The enemy convoy appeared on schedule. 12 fat cargo ships loaded with supplies for the occupation forces. 4 sleek warships escorting them, their weapons ready but not expecting trouble. The Zephyrians had owned these space lanes for months. They felt safe here. "Target the escort ships first," Morrison ordered. "We need to eliminate their ability to fight back." The Liberty's torpedo tubes opened silently. 4 quantum torpedoes streaked out, each one aimed at a different escort ship. The weapons moved so fast that the enemy didn't even see them coming. There. First torpedo hit the lead escort ship right in the engine section. The ship's shields flickered and died as the adaptive weapon learned how to defeat them. The explosion lit up space for kilometers in every direction. The second torpedo struck another escort ship in the command section. The ship broke apart in a shower of metal and flames. The third and fourth torpedoes found their targets moments. Later in less than 30 seconds, all 4 escort ships were destroyed. The cargo ships, fat and slow, tried to run but had nowhere to go. The Liberty moved among them like a shark among fish, her weapons finding weak points that the enemy didn't know they had. "All targets destroyed," Barrett reported. "No survivors." Morrison nodded. It was brutal work, but it was necessary. Every supply ship they destroyed meant fewer weapons for the enemy occupation forces. Every escort ship they killed was one less threat to human colonies. "Set course for the exit point," Morrison ordered. "Best speed." The Liberty disappeared back into the darkness, leaving behind only wreckage and floating debris. By the time enemy reinforcements arrived, the ghost ship would be gone. Hiding in the empty spaces between stars. As they traveled, Morrison thought about the mathematics of their situation. The Liberty was one ship against an entire empire. They couldn't win this war, but they could buy time. Every day they survived was another day for human colonies to evacuate, another day for the resistance to grow stronger. "Captain," Dr. Wright sighed, "I'm picking up coded transmissions from the resistance networks. The word is spreading. Other conquered species are starting to fight back." Morrison felt a spark of hope. The Liberty's actions were inspiring others to resist. The ghost ship had become a symbol of defiance against impossible odds. "What are they saying?" Morrison asked. "They're calling it the Liberty Rebellion. Ships that appear from nowhere, strike without warning, and disappear like ghosts. Some of the conquered worlds are starting to believe that the Empire can be defeated." Morrison smiled. That was worth more than any military victory. Hope was a powerful weapon, and the Liberty was spreading it across the galaxy. Fleet Admiral Zarthok stood in the war room of his flagship, staring at the tactical display that showed the entire galaxy. Red dots marked conquered worlds, blue dots showed enemy positions, and green lines traced supply routes. But there was one thing on the display that made his blood run cold: the growing number of yellow, warning markers that showed where the ghost ship had struck. The human vessel had become his obsession. In 47 personal conquests, Zarthok had never faced an enemy that could strike and disappear so effectively. The ship appeared without warning, destroyed everything in its path, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. It was like trying to catch smoke with bare hands. "Admiral," said his aide, Captain Mordax, "we have another report. The Liberty has struck the supply depot at Proxima Station. The entire garrison is dead, and all the stored equipment is destroyed." Zarthok's forearms clenched into fists. Proxima Station had been heavily defended with the latest shield technology and 50 of the Empire's best soldiers. The human ship had torn through their defenses like they were made of paper. "How many ships have we lost to this single vessel?" Zarthok demanded. Mordax checked his datapad. 87 confirmed kills, Admiral. That includes 2 heavy cruisers and 1 of our dreadnoughts. The numbers were impossible to believe. The Liberty had destroyed more Zephyrian ships than the previous 20 conquered species combined. Every military doctrine said that one ship could not stand against an entire fleet, but the humans had somehow broken those rules. "Sir," another officer reported, "Intelligence Division has completed their analysis of the Liberty's attack patterns. They believe the ship is using technology that shouldn't exist." Zarthok turned to face the officer. "Explain. The ship's stealth system is unlike anything we've seen. Our sensors can't detect it, even when we know exactly where to look. Their weapons seem to adapt to whatever they hit, bypassing our shields in ways that should be impossible. And their tactics? They seem to predict our movements before we make them. Every trap we set, every ambush we plan, they avoid perfectly. It's like they can read our minds." Zarthok felt a chill run down his spine. The Zephyrian Empire had conquered the galaxy because they had the best technology and the best military minds. But the humans had somehow developed something better. One ship was making his entire fleet look like amateurs. "Admiral," Mordax said quietly, "there's something else. We've received reports of uprisings on 3 conquered worlds. The local populations are calling it the Liberty Rebellion. They believe the human ship represents hope for liberation." This was the news that Zarthok had been dreading. The Empire's power came not just from military might, but from the despair of conquered peoples. When species believed they could never be free, they stayed conquered. But hope was dangerous. Hope could spread like a disease, turning loyal subjects into rebels. "Which worlds?" Zarthok asked. "Altair Prime, Vega 7, and Centaura Beta. The rebellion started small, but they're growing. The rebels are using hit-and-run tactics, just like the Liberty. They strike supply convoys and disappear before our forces can respond." Zarthok walked to the viewing port and looked out at the stars. Each point of light represented a world under Zephyrian control. For 10 years, those worlds had been peaceful, their populations broken and obedient. Now, because of one human ship, that peace was crumbling. "How many ships are we using to hunt the Liberty?" he asked. 120, Admiral. 3 full fleets under your direct command." It was an enormous commitment of resources. Those ships should have been conquering new worlds or defending important positions. Instead, they were chasing a ghost through empty space, achieving nothing. "And we still haven't found them?" "No, sir. The Liberty appears, strikes, and vanishes. Our fastest ships can't catch it, our best sensors can't track it, and our smartest tactics can't predict it. Zarthok felt something he had never experienced before: doubt. For the first time in his military career, he was facing an enemy he couldn't understand or defeat. The humans had somehow created a ship that challenged everything the Empire believed about warfare. "Admiral," an officer called out, "we're receiving a priority transmission from the home system. The High Command wants a status report on the Liberty situation." Zarthok didn't want to make that report. How could he explain that one human ship had tied up 3 fleets and inspired rebellions across the galaxy? How could he tell his superiors that the Empire's military might was being challenged by a crew of humans who should have been conquered months ago? "Sir," Mordak said, "there's been another development. Our communications intercepted a human transmission. It was heavily encrypted, but we managed to decode part of it." "What did it say?" "It was a message from the Liberty's captain to the human resistance networks. Captain Jake Morrison was updating them on enemy fleet movements and promising to continue the fight." Zarthok memorized the name. Captain Jake Morrison, the human who had become the Empire's most wanted enemy. The man who had turned one ship into a symbol of resistance that was spreading across the galaxy. "Do we know anything about this Morrison?" Zarthok asked. "Intelligence has a file on him. He's a career military officer, age 42, with experience in deep space operations. Before the war, he was involved in testing experimental technologies for the human fleet." "What kind of technologies?" "Stealth systems, adaptive weapons, advanced tactics. The Liberty appears to be a test platform for everything the humans developed in secret." Zarthok began to understand. The humans had been preparing for this war longer than anyone realized. While the Empire was conquering other species, humanity had been developing weapons specifically designed to fight the Zephyrians. The Liberty wasn't just a lucky ship with a brave crew. It was a carefully planned weapon of war. "Admiral," another officer reported, "we're getting reports of more attacks. The Liberty has hit supply lines in 3 different sectors in the past 6 hours. That's impossible. One ship can't be in 3 places at once. Unless there's more than one ship, sir." Zarthok felt his worst fears confirmed. The Liberty wasn't alone. There were other human ships out there using the same technology and tactics. The ghost ship was just the beginning. "Sir," Mordak said, "intelligence believes the attacks are coordinated. The Liberty is the flagship of a secret human fleet. They're using advanced communication systems to coordinate their strikes across the galaxy." Zarthok looked at the tactical display again. The yellow warning markers were spreading like a plague, marking every place the humans had struck. The Empire's supply lines were being systematically destroyed, and their occupied worlds were beginning to rebel. "Double the bounty on the Liberty," Zarthok ordered, "and prepare the Annihilator fleet. We're going to end this war once and for all." The Annihilator fleet was the Empire's ultimate weapon. 50 of the most powerful ships ever built, equipped with planet-killing weapons and commanded by the best officers in the military. They had never been deployed against a single enemy ship before. "Sir," Mordak said, "is that necessary? It's just one ship." Zarthok turned to face his aide. "Captain, that one ship has done more damage to this Empire than any enemy we've ever faced. It's time to stop treating this as a minor problem and start treating it as the threat it really is." As the orders went out to assemble the Annihilator fleet, Zarthok continued to stare at the tactical display. "Somewhere out there, Captain, Jake Morrison and his crew were preparing for their next strike. The hunt was about to become a war. Captain Jake Morrison knew their time was running out. The Liberty's stealth systems were failing, sparks flying from damaged control panels, and his crew was exhausted from months of running and fighting. But the intelligence reports coming in from the Resistance network showed something the enemy didn't expect. The Liberty wasn't humanity's only secret. Morrison stood in the ship's briefing room, looking at the holographic display that showed enemy fleet movements. 3 massive Zephyrian fleets were closing in on their position, and escape was becoming impossible. The ghost ship that had terrorized the Empire for months was finally being cornered. "Captain," said Lieutenant Commander Lisa Barrett, "we're receiving a coded transmission from Admiral Kate Parker. She's requesting a meeting at the old rendezvous point." Morrison felt his heart jump. Admiral Parker commanded what remained of the human fleet, 12 ships that had been hiding in the outer rim of the galaxy, waiting for the right moment to strike back. Morrison had almost forgotten they still existed. "How long to reach the rendezvous?" Morrison asked. 18 hours, sir. But we'll have to go through enemy patrol zones. The risk is high." Morrison looked at his crew. These men and women had followed him through impossible battles, never questioning his orders, even when those orders seemed like suicide. They trusted him completely, and he couldn't let them down. Set course for the rendezvous point. Maximum stealth. The Liberty moved through space like a wounded animal seeking shelter. Her once perfect stealth field flickered and wavered, and her adaptive armor showed scorch marks from dozens of battles. But she was still the most dangerous ship in the galaxy. The rendezvous took place in an empty solar system, far from any inhabited worlds. The USS Constitution appeared first, a massive dreadnought that dwarfed the Liberty. She was followed by 11 other human ships, all that remained of Earth's once mighty fleet. Admiral Kate Parker greeted Morrison in the Constitution's conference room. She was a veteran of the Martian conflicts, tough as steel and twice as sharp. Her face showed the strain of months in hiding, but her eyes burned with determination. "Jake," she said, "your ship has done the impossible. The Liberty has become a legend across the galaxy. But we can't run forever. It's time for the endgame." Morrison sat down at the conference table. Around them, the other ship captains gathered. Commander Bill Santos of the destroyer Lexington, Captain Mary Chun of the cruiser Yorktown, and 9 others. They were all that stood between humanity and total defeat. "What's the plan?" Morrison asked. Admiral Parker activated the holographic display. It showed the Zephyrian Empire's territory, with red markers indicating major fleet positions and supply bases. But at the center of the display was a single blue dot, the Zephyrian homeworld. "Intelligence reports show that the Empire is pulling ships from across the galaxy to hunt you," Parker explained. "They're so focused on the Liberty that they've left their homeworld vulnerable for the first time in decades." Morrison studied the display. The Zephyrian homeworld was the center of their empire, the place where all their military decisions were made. If it fell, the entire war effort would collapse. "You want to attack their homeworld while they're busy chasing us?" "That's exactly what I want to do," Parker said. "But we need a distraction, something big enough to draw their entire fleet away from the homeworld." Morrison began to understand. "You want the Liberty to reveal herself, to draw them into a trap." "The Titan Nebula," Parker said, pointing to a region of space near the galactic rim. "It's perfect for what we need. Dense gas clouds that will interfere with their sensors, and plenty of room for a running battle." Captain Santos leaned forward. "Admiral, with respect, you're asking the Liberty to face the entire Zephyrian fleet alone. That's suicide." "I know what I'm asking," Parker replied, "but it's the only way. The Liberty draws them to the nebula and holds them there for as long as possible. Meanwhile, we take the Constitution and hit their homeworld with everything we have." Morrison looked at the tactical display again. The plan was desperate, but it might work. The Liberty had embarrassed the Zephyrians for months. If she suddenly appeared in the open, they would throw everything they had at her. "How long do you need?" Morrison asked. 12 hours. Long enough to reach their homeworld, destroy their command centers, and broadcast the liberation codes to every conquered world. The Liberty won't survive 12 hours against their entire fleet. Parker nodded sadly. I know. But Jake, your ship has already changed the course of this war. You've proven that the Empire can be defeated. Now we need you to finish what you started. Morrison stood up and walked to the viewing port. Outside, he could see the Liberty floating in space, her battle-scarred hull gleaming in the light of distant stars. She had been his home for years, and his crew had become his family. Now he was being asked to lead them all to certain death. Captain, said Dr. Helen Wright, who had been quiet during the meeting, I've been analyzing the enemy communication intercepts. The resistance networks are ready. As soon as we attack their homeworld, every conquered species will rise up at the same time. Morrison turned back to face the group. Every conquered species? All of them, Wright confirmed. The Altarians, the Vegans, the Sanctori, and dozens of others. They've been secretly preparing for months, waiting for the signal. The Liberty's actions have given them hope, and now they're ready to fight. Parker stood up. Jake, this isn't just about destroying the Zephyrian fleet. It's about liberating the entire galaxy. Every world they've conquered, every species they've enslaved, will be free. Morrison thought about all the worlds he had seen, burning all the people who had died under Zephyrian rule. The Empire had brought nothing but death and suffering to the galaxy. If the Liberty's sacrifice could end that suffering, it would be worth it. What about the other human colonies? Morrison asked. The ones that survived? They're ready too, Parker said. As soon as the homeworld falls, they'll come out of hiding and join the fight. Humanity will have a chance to rebuild. Morrison looked around the room at the faces of his fellow captains. They were all volunteers, people who had chosen to fight even when defeat seemed certain. They understood what he was being asked to. I need to talk to my crew, Morrison said. This has to be their choice too, Parker nodded. Of course. But Jake, I need an answer soon. The enemy fleets are closing in, and we're running out of time. Morrison returned to the Liberty and called his crew together in the main hangar. 800 men and women gathered around him, the people who had followed him through months of impossible battles. They looked tired but determined, ready for whatever came next. I won't lie to you, Morrison said. We're being asked to make the ultimate sacrifice, to draw the entire enemy fleet into a trap while Admiral Parker attacks their homeworld. We'll be outnumbered 1,000 to 1. The hangar was silent. Morrison could see the understanding in their eyes. They had known this moment would come. Eventually. Anyone who wants to leave can transfer to another ship, Morrison continued. No one will think less of you. You've already done more than anyone could ask. Not a single person moved. Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez stepped forward. Captain, we signed up for this mission knowing we might not come back. If our sacrifice can free the galaxy, then let's do it. Dr. Wright nodded. The Liberty has become a symbol of hope. Let's make sure that symbol means something. Lieutenant Commander Barrett smiled. Besides, sir, we've beaten impossible odds. Before, who knows, maybe we'll do it again. Morrison felt pride swell in his chest. These people, his crew, were the best humanity had to offer. They were willing to die for something bigger than themselves. All right then, Morrison said. Let's go give the Empire something to remember us by. The Titan Nebula erupted in brilliant flashes of light as the USS Liberty faced the assembled might of the Zephyrian Empire. Admiral Zarthok had brought everything he could find. 400 ships, including the massive Annihilator-class dreadnoughts that had turned entire planets into ash. Against this armada, the Liberty looked like a tiny insect about to be crushed. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, watching the enemy fleet spread out in attack formation. His ship's stealth systems were finally gone, damaged beyond repair. The Liberty was visible now, a small silver shape against the swirling gases of the nebula. There was nowhere left to run. All batteries, fire at will. Morrison ordered calmly. The Liberty's quantum torpedoes streaked out into space, each one finding its target with deadly precision. The first salvo destroyed 3 enemy cruisers, their shields collapsing under the adaptive weaponry that had terrorized the Empire for months. But the return fire was overwhelming. Hundreds of enemy weapons opened fire at once. Energy beams, plasma cannons, and missile swarms converged on the Liberty's position. The ship's experimental armor held for a few seconds, then began to buckle under the massive assault. "Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez. "Shields down to 60% and falling." Morrison gripped his command chair as the ship shook under the enemy bombardment. Around him, his crew worked with desperate efficiency. They had known this moment would come, and they were ready for it. "Captain," said Dr. Helen Wright from her station, "I'm detecting massive energy signatures across the galaxy. The resistance networks are activating right on schedule." Morrison smiled, despite the chaos around him. The Liberty's sacrifice was the signal that oppressed species throughout the galaxy had been waiting for. On dozens of worlds, hidden rebel. Cells were emerging from hiding, ready to strike back at their oppressors. "How many worlds are rising up?" Morrison asked. "All of them, sir. The Altarians are attacking the occupation forces on their homeworld. The Vegans have launched their hidden fleet. The Centauri warriors are leading uprisings on every world they were taken to. It's happening everywhere at once." Morrison felt a surge of pride. The Liberty's months of hit-and-run attacks had given these people hope. Now that hope was turning into action. The galaxy was fighting back. "Sir," Lieutenant Commander Lisa Barrett reported, "Admiral Parker's fleet has reached the Zephyrian homeworld. They're beginning their attack." On the tactical display, Morrison could see the Constitution and her escorts dropping out of hyperspace near the enemy capital. The Zephyrian homeworld had been virtually undefended, its protective fleets drawn away to hunt the Liberty. Now it was paying the price for that decision. "All ships," Morrison broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Liberty. Today, we showed the galaxy that the Empire can be defeated. We proved that courage is stronger than fear, that hope is stronger than despair." The Liberty shuddered as another wave of enemy fire struck her hull. Sparks flew from damaged consoles, and the lights flickered. But her weapons kept firing, each shot taking down another enemy ship. "Admiral Zarthok," Morrison continued, "you conquered worlds because you believed that might makes right. You thought that because you had bigger ships and more weapons, you were unstoppable. But you made one critical mistake. The enemy fleet pressed closer, their weapons tearing chunks of armor from the Liberty's hull. The human ship was dying, but she was taking as many enemies with her as possible. You forgot that sometimes it's not about the size of the ship. It's about the size of the fight in the people who crew her. You forgot that one person willing to die for freedom is worth 1,000 who fight only for conquest." On the bridge, Morrison's crew continued their work, even as their ship fell apart around them. Rodriguez rerouted power to the weapon systems. Wright coordinated with the resistance networks. Barrett targeted the enemy's most dangerous ships. They were all heroes, every one of them. "Sir," Barrett reported, "the Constitution has destroyed the enemy command center. They're broadcasting the liberation codes now." Morrison watched the tactical display as the liberation codes spread across the galaxy. These were the secret signals that would activate hidden weapons caches, coordinate resistance movements, and unite the oppressed species in their fight for freedom. "Admiral Zarthok," Morrison broadcast again, "look around you. Your empire is crumbling. Every world you conquered is in revolt. Your supply lines are cut. Your homeworld is under attack. And your fleets are scattered across the galaxy chasing ghosts. The Liberty's hull was glowing red-hot from the constant bombardment. Sections of the ship were breaking away, spinning off into the nebula. But her weapons kept firing, and every shot found its mark. "Captain," Rodriguez called out, "main reactor is critical. We've got maybe 5 minutes before core breach." Morrison nodded. He had expected this. The Liberty had fought far longer than anyone thought possible, but even the most advanced ship had limits. "All hands," Morrison announced over the ship's communication system. "This is the captain. It has been my honor to serve with each and every one of you. Today, we showed the galaxy what humanity is capable of. We proved that freedom is worth fighting for, no matter the cost." On his tactical display, Morrison could see the results of their sacrifice. The Constitution had destroyed 3 major command centers on the Zephyrian homeworld. Rebel fleets were emerging from hiding throughout the galaxy. The uprising that the Liberty had inspired was becoming a full revolution. "Sir," Wright reported, "I'm receiving messages from resistance cells on 47 worlds. They're all asking the same question. Did the Liberty make it?" Morrison smiled. "Tell them the Liberty completed her mission. Tell them that freedom has a price, and we were honored to pay it." The enemy fleet was closing in now, their weapons focused on the dying human ship. But even as the Liberty's systems failed one by one, her crew refused to give up. They fought with plasma torches when the guns failed, and they kept broadcasting hope when the communication systems died. Admiral Zarthok watched from his flagship as the small, human vessel continued to resist. He had brought 400 ships to destroy one enemy, and that enemy was still fighting. It was impossible, but it was happening. "Sir," his aide reported, "we're receiving reports from across the Empire. Uprisings on every conquered world, attacks on our supply bases, and our whole world is under assault. The rebellion is spreading faster than we can respond." Zarthok felt the foundations of his empire cracking beneath him. One ship, one crew. One captain had done what entire fleets could not. They had given the galaxy hope, and hope was a more powerful weapon than anything in the Imperial arsenal. "How many ships are we losing to the uprisings?" Zarthok asked. "Hundreds, sir." "Maybe. Thousands. Every world we conquered is turning against us at the same time. Our occupation forces are overwhelmed." The Liberty fired her last torpedo, a brilliant streak of light that found its way through the enemy formation and destroyed a heavy cruiser. Then her weapons fell silent, her power finally exhausted. Morrison looked around his bridge. Half the crew was injured, and the other half was working with equipment that should have failed hours ago. But they were still there, still fighting, still refusing to surrender. "Captain," Barrett said quietly, "it's been an honor serving with you." "The honor has been mine," Morrison replied. "All of you. You're the best crew in the galaxy." The final enemy barrage struck the Liberty with overwhelming force. Her hull cracked open like an eggshell, and fire bloomed in the darkness of space. But even as she died, the ship's final act was to broadcast one last message to the galaxy. "This is the USS Liberty." Morrison's voice echoed across 1,000 worlds. "We came, we fought, we showed you that the Empire can be defeated. Now it's your turn. Take back your worlds, take back your freedom, and remember that sometimes one ship can change everything." The Liberty exploded in a brilliant flash of light that could be seen for light years. Her crew died as they had lived, fighting for something bigger than themselves. But their sacrifice had lit a fire that would burn across the galaxy. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Admiral Parker's fleet completed its mission. The Empire's command structure was in ruins, its communication networks destroyed, and its leaders dead or fleeing. The carefully constructed Dominion that had taken decades to build was collapsing in hours. Across the galaxy, the species that had been conquered were rising up. The Altarians emerged from their hidden cities with weapons they had been secretly building for months. The vegans launched ships that they had disguised as cargo vessels. The Centauri warriors broke free from their prison camps and turned their captors' weapons against them. But it wasn't just the conquered species that were fighting. Humans throughout the galaxy came out of hiding, revealing colonies and fleets that the Empire had never known existed. The Liberty's sacrifice had been the signal they were waiting for, and now they struck with coordinated precision. Admiral Zarthok found himself commanding an empire that no longer existed. His fleets were scattered, his supply lines cut, and his homeworld occupied by enemy forces. The rebellion that had started with one ship had become an unstoppable tide of liberation.